Howdy, y'all. I hope you're having a good afternoon. This is the Southern Steel Show with Brody Huff. That is my name. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about wisdom and communication, not because I claim to be wise or claim to be a good communicator, simply because that's what we've been being taught about at the Patriot Institute here in Fredericksburg, Texas. And before we get into the podcast, if you are interested in what Patriot Academy is, I would urge you to go over to patriotacademy.com and look into it just a little bit. I think that if it continues to go the way that it currently looks like it's going, then the people that go through the programs and learn the curriculum here will be the tip of the spear in the conservative movement of the United States of America. So yeah, go on over to patriotacademy.com and check them out. Anyways, we're going to start this off with a reading out of the Bible. I think I'm going to make that a normal thing on this show, just because I think that it's always a good idea to back up what you say with Scripture. Otherwise, it's not really worth much, is it? So today we're going to be reading Proverbs 2, the full chapter. My son, if you accept my words and store up my commands within you, listening closely to wisdom and directing your heart to understanding. Furthermore, if you call out to insight and lift your voice to understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it like hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and discover the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. He stores up success for the upright. He is a shield for those who live with integrity, so that he may guard the paths of justice and protect the way of his faithful followers. Then you will understand righteousness, justice, and integrity, every good path. For wisdom will enter your heart, and knowledge will delight you. Discretion will watch over you, and understanding will guard you. It will rescue you from the way of evil, from anyone who says perverse things, from those who abandon the right paths to walk in ways of darkness, from those who enjoy doing evil and celebrate perversion, whose paths are crooked and whose ways are devious. It will rescue you from a forbidden woman, from a wayward woman with her flattering talk, who abandons the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. For her house sinks down to death, and her ways to the land of the departed spirits. None return who go to her, none reach the paths of life. So follow the way of the good and keep the paths of the righteous. For the upright will inhabit the land, and those of integrity will remain in it. But the wicked will be cut off from the land, and the treacherous ripped out of it. And just to go on top of that, we're going to read Psalm 14:1. The fool says in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt, they do vile deeds. There is no one who does good. So, as far as communication and wisdom goes, I don't really know that you even need to hear anything from me. Nobody says it better than the Bible does. I suppose it didn't talk about communication much, so that's what this one will be more geared towards versus the wisdom side. Because how do you get across your point? How do you get across what you believe to be wisdom? And first off, I think you need to do, just as that proverb says, and hold that wisdom close. Make it part of you. Give me just a second. Sorry about that. I thought someone was knocking on my door, and I just remembered that they have a constitutional defense class going on right now, so that was gunshots, not door knocking. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh yeah, speaking about how I kind of take in Proverbs 2 here. Don't try to communicate any point if you can't justify what you're trying to get across based on this proverb. It says that, let me just say it. I'm not too good at retaining information like this. Yes. You have to accept his words and store up his commands. If what you are considering wisdom is not a command of God, nor is it his words, or from his word, then it is not of God. Therefore, it is not wisdom, it is treachery. If you hold on to those commands and those words, then discretion will watch over you and understanding will guard you. And that's something that I think a lot of people don't get. Like, they don't get the point of what does it mean for understanding to guard you. And all that means is it's guarding your character, guarding your image, guarding the image of God. If you are a believer and you are claiming things that end up being wrong or false or unwise, then that does not just reflect poorly upon you, it reflects poorly upon the faith. And actually, my dad texted me after this last, he still texts me, after this last podcast, and was talking about how he thought that I was kind of alienating some people, and how we need to be more graceful and bring them into the fold. You can't believe people or get people to change by alienating them, and it's not that I disagree with that. I guess it's just more of a sense of like, well, you know, how far does it go before it's like, okay, I'm not really trying to win you over anymore. I just need you gone because you're messing up the people that are on the right side of history. I believe it's in Matthew. Give me just a second. Let me pull this up. I know it is a verse. Just trying to remember where it is. Jesus was talking about those who lead little ones astray. I'm trying to get more biblically literate so that I can pull up scripture out of the back of my head and not always have to come here with a Bible in hand to get it back. So right now I'm starting the day off with one proverb and 5 psalms. And then if I planned out enough time in the morning, then I do my 2 Old Testament chapters in the morning, and if I didn't plan out enough time, then I do 2 Old Testament chapters and 2 New Testament chapters in the evening. So all in all, I'm getting about 45 minutes to an hour worth of reading a day out of this Bible of mine so that I can really prove myself. Study to make yourself approved, not prove yourself, but you study so that you can be approved by God. You know, I don't think that anyone's going to find greatness or a sphere of influence inside of the Christian or conservative movement if they are not well studied. They'll make one mistake and you'll never hear from them again. Where is this? I know you probably know what I'm talking about. It was the millstone one. Me. Right now, though, I'm not quite there. Right now, it's a whole lot of Google because I know I've heard that, but I don't remember where it is. I bet if it's not Matthew, it's John. It is Matthew. I was thinking it was in 21 for some reason. It is Matthew 18, actually. Matthew 18:6. That's what I was looking for. But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to fall away, it would be better for him if a heavy millstone were hung around his neck and he were drowned in the depths of the sea. So anyone that says that Christ never speaks of violence, he just told us to drown somebody in the sea for leading a little one astray. So I'm not going to be more nice in my speech, I suppose, would be the term for that. Especially since I believe that kindness does not always fall in line with niceness, nor does tolerance fall in line with grace, nor is mercy always separated from justice. All of those things can go kind of, not all of those things. I think tolerance and grace specifically are separated kind of forever. Because they just mean 2 totally different things, but people try to blur the line between those meanings so that they can move some progressive thought into the church. Progressivism in church is not a thing. That's only regression, actually. You're not progressing at all. Progression in the Christian faith should look like us slowly making our way towards a theocracy with Christ at the head of the kingdom of heaven. And that's not going to happen all the way. until he's back. Obviously, he can't be on the physical throne of the world if he is still in heaven on the right hand of the Father. But that does not mean that we cannot push for that. The difference is, how do we get there? Like, there are multiple trains of thought on how do we get to that kingdom of heaven. And some people are like, yes, crusades. And I don't disagree that some crusades are justified, but obviously you can't exactly have a kingdom full of believers if everybody's dead, so we're not going to do that. And you can't just go around showing what some people call grace, but ends up just being illiterate tolerance to everybody, where you're like, yes, come live with us, come be in our country. Yes. How do we keep the kind of base of Christian operations in the world alive? Obviously, we let in a bunch of people that do not believe anything like us so that they can change our ways of life simply by not conforming and outdoing us in the family department, because they actually understand that if you want to conquer the world, have kids, don't focus on your career and have one, or none. A fur baby is not a baby. You shouldn't have a pet and think that's good enough. Pets are fine, but have kids. Get married young, have kids. Anyways, that's kind of a rabbit trail that I guess I wasn't really trying to go down. I just wanted to clarify that I'm not going to say anything that I don't believe in. I'm not going to say anything that I don't think is right. And I'm not going to say anything simply because I think it's going to get people fired up, because my podcast has a total listener count of like 40 people maybe, so it's not exactly that wide-reaching. So there's not a reason for me to do something to get people fired up. That doesn't mean that these words couldn't fire up certain groups, but those groups are not going to hear them, so it doesn't matter. And if it did matter, then I don't know that I would change what I said then either, because even then I would still think that what I'm saying is right. Before each podcast, I sit down, and while I'm setting up, I am playing worship music, I am praying, I am making sure that that I know what I am going to be speaking on that day is correct and right. And I don't technically have to defend myself at all in this podcast. I am a grown man with no real responsibilities other than to my Lord and my God, Jesus Christ. But I do love my dad, and I know that we are taught to not forsake the knowledge and wisdom of our fathers. So, no, I'm not going to try to get rid of all of my rhetoric, but yes, I am aware that grace has to be a part of each Christian's life. But there is a time for that, especially when you tie in grace to mercy. And right now I am more concerned with saving my own nation and the belief systems of this beautiful land than I am about trying to correctly win people over in theological debates that are not going to go anywhere, because when you are in an uncomfortable situation like a Muslim or a Hindu in the United States, this is still a Christian nation, even though it is slowly falling away from that if something doesn't change. You stay offensive. You stay offensive and defensive. You don't open up your mind to hear and listen. Like, the people that do that are the exceptions, not the main ones. More people are getting saved in countries where you are persecuted to the point of death, like a higher percentage there than they are in this free country. Because this is a Christian country, and people are not going to open up and change if their worldview says, oh yes, go out and change everybody else's mind. And what people forget is that ours says that as well. The only difference is it doesn't say, yes, kill everyone that does not agree with you, like Islam does. Go kill the infidels. Yeah, we're not going to kill you because you don't believe. I don't even know where I was going. I guess I was just trying to make a case kind of for my dad, because he's one of the only people that I know that listens to this every time. So more directed at him than anything else today. Anyways, getting into communication and not so much wisdom. We read about wisdom. Let's get into how do you get your point across. So there are different ways that people communicate. This is a part of the course here at the Patriot Institute that Rick Green came up with years ago. Maybe even like more than 20 years ago, to be honest. It's very old and very effective. I say very old. I guess that's not very old. It's just that I would have been about 1 if I was born yet. So anywhere from not being born for a few years to being about a 1-year-old is when this curriculum came up. So it seems old to me, but I guess that's not that old. And people communicate their points and take in information in 4 different ways. And that is visual communication, that is kinesthetic communication, that is auditory communication, and that is digital communication. Now, visual is just as it sounds. They are seeing what's happening. So that is why they are taking in that communication. So people that do like PowerPoints or signs or talk with their hands or have very expressive faces, they're going to get across to a visual crowd better than most other people. When they are talking, when they are doing the talking, if they also communicate their point visually, because you can take in information in one way without putting out information in that same way. But if they communicate their own point visually, then they're going to be using things that make it easy for them to understand because they just think it's going to make it easy for everyone else. So they're going to have like examples, like a science project in school. You know, you get the foam stuff, mix a few chemicals, and it blows into the ceiling basically. I don't remember what that's called, elephant something. It's like this colory foam stuff that just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. That's for the visual learners out there. They're going to talk with their hands and be all wavy and make specific motions for specific words. They're going to be very expressive with their face. That's visual. Kinesthetic is more so, how do you feel? You know, they take in communication based off of feeling. They put out communication based on trying to get you to feel that same thing. They use words that have to do with feeling, like saying, I feel this way, versus I think this way, or I saw this thing. That does more so tend to arise amongst women and liberal ways of thought because it's so based in feeling and not knowledge. However, people that are kinesthetic that cling to knowledge on top of that are some of the most effective leaders out there, because that's the people that can get you to feel the right way about the right things. But as far as how do they take in the information, if someone is giving a heartfelt story on top of a PowerPoint, say you're talking about why is abortion wrong, and you give all the facts and all that, and then you tell a story about this mother that decided to keep her child, and now he's this big scientist or I guess scientists and biologists are pretty much the same thing. Became a successful man because she chose not to have an abortion. That is going to be something that strikes at a kinesthetic person because it's making them feel the message. An auditory person is going to be someone who only needs the sound. They don't need to see anything. They don't need you to make them feel a certain way. The information side is not going to be any less for them. They're like, well, if you don't make any sense, then you don't make any sense. That's just how it is. But they can listen to something with their eyes closed. You can think they're going to sleep. They'll have faces where it's like they look zoned out, like they don't care, but it's because they don't need you to see how they feel. They don't need to see you. So it's literally just their ears telling them what's going on. They don't need anything else. So these people are going to be those that maybe during a class or a lesson or something like that, they're like, okay, so this chair is not comfortable. I don't need to see what's going on. And they go sit at the back of the room and just kind of look at the ceiling. And you'll think that they're zoned out and not paying attention, but you call on them and try to call them out, and they're going to tell you everything you just said. When they're communicating to other people, they're going to be more clear in their voice. They're going to have more voice inflections where they move up and down with their voice. If they're trying to make a point across, they'll do like I just did with the point. Like you kind of put emphasis on that word. because they're trying to make it click in the sound version of things. This definitely caused some trouble between my dad and I whenever I was young, because I am an auditory learner, but of course I did not have any of this knowledge that I was, so all I got was Dad's on, look at me when I'm talking to you, or don't you see why we're doing this? Like, no, because I don't see and I don't care about seeing. That's not what I'm doing. So a lot of times Dad would think I was zoned out or mad or anything like that, and I'm just trying to hear him, and he just keeps talking about trying to get me to look at him, and it's like, why do I need to look at you for this? Because Dad is a visual person, so he's gonna get things based off of seeing more than hearing. Now obviously no one is just one of the four or the other. There's a good mix of things, but you have certain priorities in how you communicate. So like I am least visual. There's a test that comes with this course that you can take, and the point is to learn how to be all four fairly equally, but that is a learned skill. It is not a natural thing, and I am not visual at all. That test pretty much confirmed that. It does not matter to me. I get my point across visually sometimes. I like to use examples, and I like to talk with my hands a lot, but like you'll think I'm taking a nap in the back of the room, or with Dad think I'm not paying attention. It's like, nope, I know everything you're saying. I just don't have to look at you to understand what you're saying. Plus, I am a smart aleck a lot of times, so that never did help. On top of that, because we'd get done and then I'd snap back with everything you just said. So it's like, all right, you're done. I'm like, oh, dang it. So that's when being respectful, even whenever people are not making sense or you're not making sense. Just try to be respectful and you'll come out closer to on top, even if you're not on top. And then finally, the last way of learning or communicating is digitally. And those are the people that only care about the knowledge. They want everything like letter of the law to a T, every single word that's just said. They are typing 100 miles a minute, just trying to get everything that's in this. They're basically transcribing a lesson. I am not that. I try to think logically before I argue or debate with people, before I present a point, because I know that a lot of people are digital. I am not digital. I write in bullet points. I take information in bullet points. I take what you say and write it down in a way that actually makes sense to me. I don't change what you're saying or the meaning of what you're saying. I just change it so it's understandable to me. Like, I don't need a 30-sentence paragraph to basically write down that Jesus is Christ. It's like, okay, Jesus is Christ. There's my note. I needed 3 words to do the same thing you just did over 5 minutes to understand it. But I communicate to other people in more digital ways because that's kind of the crowd that I'm in. Especially here at PA, they're all digital. Everyone here is like that. And it can definitely be frustrating to people that are more so like me, where I lean more heavily into the auditory and kinesthetic side of things. But it's good to be around them because it makes sure that you're based in that knowledge and that fact and can present those facts in your way. So you can click with your digital people while also knowing how to get the point across to, say, a kinesthetic person. So it's like, okay, and here's why you should care and feel this way about the facts. And then to your digital people, it's like, you don't have to care about it. You just have to know it because it is fact. And that's all they care about. And those are going to be your people like Ben Shapiro, where it's like, facts don't care about your feelings. It's like, okay, so that doesn't actually work in society if you want to get anything across ever. But you do you, dude. And then we had another thing that didn't have so much to do with communication per se, but how do I say this? But I feel like it does kind of go hand in hand with it, where it's like, how what is your personality? How do you go about life? And something that Mr. Chris Dunham said, which that's the dean here at the Patriot Institute. He's like, there are people that come into a room and they're like, here I am. And there are people that come into a room and they're like, there you are. And a good example that he used for that is like Donald Trump. He comes into a room, he's like, here I am. And Mother Teresa comes into a room and she's like, there you are. And the people that move the populaces tend to be auditory and kinesthetic on top of being that here I am person. There are times when that's not called for and where people don't want that, they're tired of it. Say Jimmy Carter, for instance. Definitely a there you are person. There's a reason nobody remembers who he is or anything he did. Most people. Because he was just kind of peaceful and subtle and all that, but he did some good things. He was objectively a good person, even if I don't agree with his politics. He's a there you are person. He's kind of soft-spoken, more, how do you feel about this, versus a here I am and here's what's right, like Donald Trump is, or kind of like I tend to be. I'm very argumentative. There's not a lot of people that can get along with me for a long period of time. But I do know how to win people over, and that's what I usually seek to do amongst people that have any kind of common ground with me. It is very hard for me to win anyone over if they don't have the most basic of that common ground with me. If I was a pastor, we'll say it like this. If I was a pastor, even though I'm not of the belief that it is the most effective way to go about evangelizing the people, I'd definitely be more of an old-timey, fire and brimstone pastor. I wouldn't be as much of a peace and love and all the rest type of teacher. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it's frowned upon by a lot in society today. But that's just how it goes. There are circles of time, because nothing is ever new under the sun, where one thing is needed, and so somebody that is that thing pops up. And then they don't need that thing anymore, so it kind of goes away. And then the next thing that they need is needed. They went from needing a here I am to a there you are, so they get rid of the here I am and elect a there you are. You have to understand how the human mind works to really get across to vast majorities of people. Take Bill Clinton, for example. I don't like the guy, obviously. I wish he wasn't from Arkansas, because that's my state, and he's kind of a stain on it as far as I'm concerned. But anyone who says, no, that guy's not a good communicator, is just factually wrong. Like, he is one of the best communicators that has ever been elected to the presidency. Good example of this, Rick Green's talked about it a few times. He's like, he came to a event in Texas that had a couple of other past presidents. He was the only Democrat president up there, and the event was a Republican event. But he got up to speak, and within seconds, everybody was laughing. Rick talked about it, and within a couple of minutes, everybody's crying. He can move crowds and make people like him. Like, it doesn't matter what he believes or how much you disagree with him. He's more of a personality type where it's like, in passing, you would probably rather go have a meal with Bill Clinton than with Donald Trump. I love way more stuff about Trump as far as his policies go and how he does things. But you can't really disagree with me that Trump is a megalomaniac and a jerk. He cares about himself, and he doesn't care how you look whenever he puts you down. And he's a good communicator in his own right in that sense. But he's not the kind that makes you like him. He's the kind that gets people fired up. And that is more so what I tend to fall into is to get people fired up, not to get people to like me. And I've come to terms with that, and that's fine with me. So that's kind of why I gave that long explanation on why I talk the way I do earlier in the podcast. And this episode's probably not even going to be that interesting, to be honest, because it's just been me talking about me for the most part. So I can see why that would be boring. But anyways, when it comes to communication, learn how to make people feel, how to make them see, how to make them listen, not just hear, but listen to you, and how to make them know. You gotta get your point across in all 4 ways of communication. And you need to master what you are. If you're a here I am person, then master that. If you're a there you are person, then master that. If you have a crutch, something that you always tend to lean back on, master that. Mr. Krish was talking about, he's like, if I ever come to a point in a speech where it's like, ooh, I forgot what I was going to say. He wears glasses all the time. So he uses that to his advantage, and he'll take his glasses off like his eyes hurt and kind of wipe them off and rub his eyes while he's trying to think of what he's saying. And as soon as he puts his glasses back on, he puts them back on because he remembers what he was going to say, and then he goes right back into it. Master your crutch. Find something that makes sense for you to pause and do in your speaking so that you can pause and do it to remember what you're saying and don't look like an idiot. Make your weaknesses work for you. Hone and sharpen your strengths and learn how to carry your weaknesses. Kind of like whenever people run with those big weighted vests, it's so they can run with more weight. It's not so that they can have a sucky run because they got a lot of weight on them. Because that does suck. I've gotten to do it once. It's not fun. It's like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this, actually? And that doesn't even have to do with it being weight. It's like, why am I running? What am I running from? There's nothing happening right now. Why am I not just lifting weights? That's a lot more fun than this. I'm not a cardio guy. I don't like it. Unless it feels like I'm doing something. I got into kickboxing. There's a girl here that kickboxes at the Patriot Institute. Her name's Ruth, and she's been teaching some classes to a few of us. And it's fun. I'm a big, clumsy, non-graceful person, so that doesn't exactly look right when I'm trying to do it, but it is fun, and it will definitely get your heart beat up the way she teaches the class. So I appreciate that, especially because I can use that as an excuse to not run that day and then run on a different day instead. I think I'll just end the podcast with kind of a synopsis of the Patriot Institute so far. They've been teaching us what it means to be a person of character. They've been teaching us how to communicate. They've been teaching us how to ask better questions. They've been teaching us how to love knowledge. They've been teaching us how to be a biblical citizen. And they have been making us a more rounded person overall. Because the people here, not just the teachers, because the people here, the other students, the other scholars, love people and want things that are better for not just them, but the other people as well. So on top of the kickboxing, there's a kid named Tate here. If you haven't listened to episode 2, he was my guest on episode 2, and he's been teaching people how to dance. Let me just tell you that before I got here, I hated dancing. Dancing is stupid, is what I thought. Probably part of that is because my parents made me do swing dancing lessons, getting ready for a prom whenever I was like 16 or 17, and like the first thing that I proceeded to do at that prom was break the toenail of my prom date's toe by just stepping on it with my big old clumsy feet. So that kind of ruined that experience for me, and I hadn't danced since. And I was talking to Tate, and I'm like, it's going to sound bad whenever I have to tell my dad eventually. It's like, Dad, what got me into dancing? He's like, what's that? And it's like, a dude. So he's made it fun whenever he's teaching. He's teaching people why do you dance? Why should you dance? What is dance? And that kind of thing. And I will say I'm not as big into it if it's not like a partner dance. I'd rather dance with a person than in a line dance or something like that. But it's fun, and it's another form of cardio. Geez, I'm sweating through my shirt by the time we're done. And I look just as clumsy doing that too, but it's fun in that environment because it's people that are doing it just because they want to be around each other and because it's something to learn. Learning is always fun. And the final just random skill that they're teaching us is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. There's a guy named Tristan Gazal that's coming here, and he teaches a class, like a normal class, and a Jiu-Jitsu class once a month here. And we just had the Jiu-Jitsu class, and I did not realize that it was the next day when I did the first kickboxing lesson. So my legs wanted to cut themselves off and throw them in a burn pile because that was so bad. I was getting cramps in my feet and my calves and one of my thighs and just had to keep going. But it's a good skill to have. The kickboxing only works so long as you don't fall down. And then you need to know how to defend yourself, and that's where the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu comes in. And in November, we're going to be going through a constitutional defense course, so that's going to be your handgun training. So they're making people that can be soldiers of mind and body. It's not just brain or brawn. It is brain and brawn. That is who a leader is someone who has the brain power to get his point across, to win people over, and has the brawn to defend himself and his family if that becomes necessary. So anyways, it's a little bit all over the place. I apologize for that today. We will try to have a more, solidly scheduled and based podcast next time. This was a little bit last minute because the week has been so busy. Like I usually put these podcasts up on a Sunday and record earlier in the week. Today I am recording on Sunday and will be putting up this podcast in an hour or two after I get done and say goodbye. And with that, I'm just going to go ahead and say goodbye. I hope that over this next week, God blesses you and just shows you a little more of His light. See you next time. This is the Southern Steel Show.